Hey friends, Miss Humphrey here. Today we are going to be talking about thirds. Thirds show three equal parts of a shape. So here is what thirds look like. In the top circle, we can see that it has been divided into three equal parts, and one part is shaded in. This is 1/3. In this circle, we can see that it is divided into three equal parts or thirds, and two of those parts are shaded in. So this is 2/3. And then finally, we can see that in this circle, all three parts are shaded in. And since those three equal parts are shaded in, it equals 3/3 or 1/2. Let's take a look at some examples of thirds. How about this rectangle? This rectangle can be divided into three equal parts or thirds. Next, we have this triangle. This triangle can also be divided into three equal parts or thirds. This square can also be divided into three equal parts or thirds. Take a look at this circle. It can also be divided into three equal parts or thirds. Then finally, we have this long rectangle, which can also be divided into three equal parts or thirds. Now we have to be careful because sometimes we may think that if we divide a shape into three parts, that it automatically means that we have thirds. However, that is not the case because remember that thirds must be three equal parts. So if our parts are unequal, then they are not thirds. Here are some examples of shapes that have been divided into three parts, but they are not thirds. This rectangle has been divided into three parts, but they are not equal parts, and so this is not an example of thirds. This circle has also been divided into three parts, but since they are not equal, it is also not an example of thirds. Now, when we're learning fractions, we also need to learn how to write these using numbers. When we write fractions, the top number shows how many parts we have. The bottom number shows how many equal parts the item is divided into. So, top number is also called the numerator, and the bottom number is also called the denominator. Let's take a look at how this works when we're talking about thirds. 1/3 is expressed 1/3 because the top number is the number of parts we have. We have one part where the bottom number shows how many equal parts the item is divided in. So we have one part out of the three equal parts that this particular shape has been divided into. 2/3 is expressed the same way. Remember, our top number shows how many parts we have, so we have two parts. And our bottom number shows how many equal parts our item or shape is divided into. And so again, since it is thirds, it is three equal parts that it has been divided into. Finally, we can have 3/3. And since 3/3 means that the number of parts we have is 3, that's the top number, and the number of equal parts that the item is divided into is also 3, that's our bottom number, then we can also say that we have 1/2 or 1 because all three parts are out of all three parts. We now have 1/2. Okay, so some things to make sure that you remember about thirds. First, in order for it to be thirds, it must be three equal parts. It is not enough to take a shape and to divide it into three parts. They must be equal. And when we express thirds, we say 1/3, 2/3, and 3/3, or 1/2.